Now over to Hanaa.
Hi, welcome to my talk. I just want to give a shout out to my mom who's tuning in from Cairo, my sister who's tuning in from Beirut, and my cousin who's tuning in from 6th of October. And yeah, so one thing to note is I think my computer's so old that some of this stuff is going to be like, the quality is going to be shoddy. So, you know, but let's start. Okay. So, right. Can people see? Oh, wait, sorry. I forgot again. 1 second. Ah, no, it's fine. Right. Okay, can anyone see this? Sorry. Okay, cool. All right, so this is a map of Egypt, and like circled down here is a place called Bir Tawil. And Bir Tawil is one of the only like unclaimed territories, maybe the only unclaimed territory in the world. And so it's basically between Egypt and Sudan. They both want this part, so they're saying to the other one, no, you take the small one. Nobody wants the small one. And so in comes Jeremiah Heaton. Jeremiah Heaton is a resident of Virginia, which is where I am right now. And he decided, because his daughter wanted to be a princess, he decided to travel there and claim the territory as his own. So like, let's watch a clip. Let's go. Sorry, loads. Sorry, you guys, but for some reason it's not working. Okay.
The author John Green once said, "Some people don't understand the promises they're making when they make them. But you keep the promise anyway." That's what love is. Love is keeping the promise. Last year, I made global headlines for keeping a promise to my daughter Emily. When she asked me if she could ever be a real-life princess, I told her that she could. And after realizing I'd made an empty promise to my daughter, I went on a mission to correct it.
One little girl's dream of becoming a princess has come true.
I guess you could call this a Game of Thrones. Jeremiah Heaton has laid claim to 800 square miles of land in eastern Africa so his daughter can be a real princess. There you see it.
Our Father's love knows no bounds, and that is one universal truth of the world.
The area is unclaimed because of a border dispute between Egypt and Sudan.
There's no greater legacy that I can leave my kids from this project than a sense of service to the world.
Now, I'm no...
So, yeah. So he basically bribes his way to this place and claims it as his own, and starts this whole, oh, I actually should show you his website because it's really nuts. Anyway, so he has a website for the Kingdom of North Sudan. He has his whole like kind of very neoliberal project, and there's like, you could apply for citizenship. The issue is like, if you, according to the video that I watch here, and you could like fill in an online application, is that Egyptian and Sudanese citizens are not allowed to apply for citizenship at the Kingdom of North Sudan. And so what interests me about this and other stories is basically how the desert is this kind of space that you could just enter and start something fresh. And then he had, in one of the interviews, actually, he had said something like, it's beautiful there, it's an arid desert, there is some Bedouin activity, but the population is zero. And so the thing is like this kind of, in the same breath, kind of saying that there are people there and they have activity there, but they are not, like, there's no population. And so also the fact that he's excluded like citizenship from like Sudanese and Egyptian citizens means the Ababda tribe, which is the tribe that basically grazes and like their sheep and herds their sheep there and generally moves around this area, are not even allowed to become citizens there anymore. Of course, this is not serious. Nobody's going to let him go. Nobody takes this seriously except him, but it's still a thing. So I started working on like the desert being this space that is empty around 2018 and 2019. This is a picture of me in the Wadi Rum desert of Jordan. And I did a performance where I sent a message to the sun using a laser pointer. This is an image of Matt Damon in The Martian movie, which was shot in the exact same location. In the movie, he is trying to signal the Earth to come and save him, you know, so they could save him from Mars. I wasn't signaling the sun for help. I was actually just saying hello. And so basically, I was really interested in this idea of the desert being a place that people who live there are invisible, people who are there are always in trouble. And this is why this is here. So this is, unless you are St. Anthony, who just goes there by choice and is not in trouble, unless, you know, his hallucinations. Anyway, so I started making work that has to do with the subjectivity of the inhabitant of the desert. And so this subjectivity of someone who's in trouble, who's invisible, who cannot go back home. And so I made this work, for example, which is called Emergency Signal Mirror, where 3 figures signal to each other at the same time. Well, and there's nowhere there is there a savior. So they keep just signaling at each other at the same time, and there's just no one to save them. And so this kind of also points to the fact that, like, if you are not seen, you're basically considered dead anyway, even if you are alive. And then I made, well, I didn't make this because of COVID, so I only designed it. And it's a wall that is 5 meters tall and 150 centimeters wide and 30 centimeters thick. It is tall enough for it to create an 18 centimeter shadow if it was placed in Bir Tawil, the unclaimed territory, on the hottest day of the year, where the sun is most likely to be like the closest to perpendicular to the ground. So like on the 15th of July. And so if you stand in the shadow of this wall, basically your body would be in the shade, but your head would be in the sun. And the wall would have sound installed in like speakers that basically whispered in your ear. And so I wanted to make a wall that basically would provide something that is not enough, like not enough safety, not enough shelter, and in which the kind of, which is very similar to this, to the same situation the subjectivity of a desert inhabitant would have. And then I also made a work that is about how people naturally find themselves to walk in circles if they have no way to like know what is straight ahead. So without like a visual cue to know like what is straight ahead, people tend to walk in circles. And this is most likely to happen in the desert, but also in a thick forest, and most likely to happen also if it's cloudy. And so just like Jeremiah, I was talking about the desert, but I didn't show it either. And I then started, sorry, I have to exit this way. And then I made, what's going on? I'm sorry. What a mess. Here we go. So I also then started working on how this, let's say, subject, this person, this inhabitant of the desert is kind of not allowed to move, not allowed to kind of traverse spaces, and kind of restricted by the nation state. This, of course, was kind of after an experience of being on the shore in Sinai and not being allowed to like walk further behind, like in further deeper inland because of security issues. And so I developed this performance in which I show this kind of grid on a wall to the audience, and I talk through the images. And the main image in the center, which is a sunset on the beach. And I wanted to talk about how, like, when you are at on the shore of the desert, it's super easy to bring in your mind's eye the image of a sunset, but it's extremely difficult to know what is behind your back. And so I want to show you some maps, more maps. So after this, I started, it was summer and COVID was like really in the middle of the crisis. And I also had like a lot of family crisis, and it was kind of a very tough time. And I started feeling like I really wanted to go to the beach, as if the beach would be somewhere I could feel better. But the issue is I started asking myself, why do I think I could escape there? Why can it be? Why is this the place that will solve my problem? And so here is a map or like a zoom in on the northern coast of Egypt, which is the subject of my thesis. This is in 2001. And like observe how the agricultural strip kind of crawls up, like towards the coast. So we're in like 2011, 2015, 2017, and now. This is kind of, and a lot of the work in the thesis kind of references a specific time, which is between 1995 and 1998. And around 1998, this place, Marina, started like really being an attraction on the coast. And as you could see, if you zoom in, it's very, it's like fully developed, crazy, like large artificial lakes. There's also these strips that go out in the water, and some of these were like villas that were built for like oligarchs of the Egyptian state. I also want to show you really quickly what this looks like. So this is 2014, and we're going to see a preview of what it looks like 2018, 2018 again, and then you got 2019, and now. So if I click on it here, so it's a very, very different landscape. And so this also is something that I was like really interested in. I was interested in thinking about how the desert is seen as something that is like non-productive, that because it's empty and there's nothing there, that something must be extracted from it. It must be transformed into something else for it to have any like worth. And so the thing is, this like part of this area that I'm talking about was never empty. It belonged to a tribe called Awlad Ali, who lived there for like 500 years, and they were sedentarized after World War II, and the British and Germans left like millions of mines in the area. And then after that, basically the military turned the whole area into a military zone, and then removed the mines, and then started slowly selling it off for development. And of course, the Awlad Ali are not part of this. I want to show you this like really silly clip from the 1990s that would play on television all the time. And so what you see in the clip is basically the kind of national project of, we're going to turn this non-productive desert into something beautiful. We're all like it's going to be a modern state. We're all going to feel better. We're going to eat, we're going to have fun. Your children are going to be safe in the future. And then also it's important to note that the singer in this clip looks like Hosni Mubarak. Very, very similar. Hosni Mubarak was the president of Egypt between 1981 and 2011, who was toppled in 2011. And so I thought about this, like this desire to escape. And this is, for example, a clip of from a movie, an Egyptian movie, where the protagonist is, going on vacation to the beach. It's noteworthy that the actor who is playing this role was, first of all, not a college student like the role he was playing. He was actually like in his 40s, and he was talking about, I'm gonna escape, have fun, I'm gonna have a great time, while the actor himself was dying of hepatitis C that was brought on by like state policy in terms of vaccination that basically transmitted hepatitis C and made it endemic in Egypt. So this is kind of the kind of imagery that is generated about the space that I'm talking about. This very empty, very like serene place where a woman is by herself in the wind. And these places are generally always referencing other people. They're not the other places, sorry. They're not in Egypt. It's Crete Islands, or it's called Beverly Hills, or it's called something else. It's not here, and it's nowhere, and it's anything you want it to be. And I want to also mention the work of Malak Hilmi, who is definitely art goals. This is notes from the Carbon Coast. Her work is basically on the kind of condition of being a person inside of the compound.
We all sat here once, on this hexagon, at the center of a carbon compound, a compound still in the simple state of carbon-6. 6 atoms joined together, waiting daily, looking out from beyond the walls of a periodic table. And the periods that passed like snapshots, digital snapshots from past park lives. They told us that if we waited long enough and invested in the binding forces of our compounds, and moved and shaked a bit in our place, that one day we might transform to diamonds, but first we must be graphite. Begin with 6, then 15, then 22. For many days we tried to find ways to turn carbon to graphite. They told us of carbon paper, that was halfway to graphite, like a graphite for the blind, but also a way to write our desire. Carbon paper was also called carbon copy, and so double C's would edge us closer to pristine. And so
Malak Hilmi's work is amazing, and I highly recommend that you guys all go and see this work in full. But what it talks about, as you can see, is that like we're carbon and we're trying to become diamonds. And so these kind of places are also like offering that that the people who live there don't have to be the desert inhabitant anymore. They could become diamonds. They could be so much better than what they are right now. And as also by the accumulation of all this carbon and more carbon coming together and being more complex, kind of like brings like, is similar to how more people just attract more people to get there. So I want to also kind of talk about how this work is kind of dealing with the idea of like the modern sense of detachment, like between the self and the object world, and how the like world is an object to look at, that there's this order through the world where everything must be seen and the whole must be grasped, and that it could be categorized and represented, and how this kind of representation, this like order of representation, basically makes it so that there is a truth to be represented. And if we take it for granted that a truth could be represented, it means that the images we keep seeing reference the real world. And so this then can become something that we think is the real world, this place. And so we come to the thesis. And so the thesis was a 7-channel video installation. I had a lot of help from my friends building this huge wall on the side to narrow the room. And so these 3 videos were computer generated, and this center video was from found footage from my family's VHS tapes. So it's the B-roll of the VHS tapes of my family's vacations in the same area. And what I wanted to do is I wanted the whole space to kind of build a sense of space. I had worked with my friend, Muhammad Ashraf, who goes by Pi R Squared. I worked with him to create a sound for the space, and it was extremely directional so that it would kind of build a sense of like distance and position the body in the space. It's also very, very directional. The ceiling is slanted where if you are standing where the camera is, the ceiling is higher, and then where the screen is, it's slower. So it slants towards and like kind of pulls towards a center point, and it kind of is referencing a 1-point perspective, which brings me to a quote by Flaubert, who, was one of the Orientalists who came to Egypt, and he talked about like trying to draw or paint in Cairo and how it was very difficult. And so he says, the more you concentrate on it, the less you grasp the whole with a W. Then gradually all this becomes harmonious, and the pieces fall into place, in a place of themselves. All this becomes harmonious, and the pieces fall into a place of themselves in accordance with the laws of perspective. And so he's talking about like these places that he's visiting that are not obeying the laws of perspective, and that if you like concentrate enough, you could make them fall into these laws. And so I wanted to kind of like, with the side videos, which were computer generated, to kind of work with the things in the built environment that helped bolster this illusion of this space, the sense of place there, the idea that this place is empty, that it's there for you, that it's available, and that you could tell yourself that going there is harmless. And so this is a tetrapod, which are these cement things that they put together so that they could control the tides of the beach. So the beach becomes less hazardous, and you could let your children swim in the water without fear of them drowning. This is an artificial lake, which is also meant to, basically, it's a really good way to dig up some sand, flood that in, and basically sell all of your units as if they all look onto the water. And this is a kind of sculpture of a bunny, and it's an animal that you would like sit on in children's playgrounds. And children's playgrounds were for me a very important element in the way it attracts people coming, and it basically provides a place for children to also like form an attachment to this place. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to also create a field of all of these images. I wanted these images to kind of flood the view, the same way they do flood our view when you are in this place and you can never see beyond it. And what I did is I put in text that would emerge out of the image. I'm sorry, I know this probably is really low quality. And so this text says, "These forms braid the lashes of my eye." And what this references is the way that like our vision and our orientation is basically being shoved and like suggested by our surroundings. And it was important for me to also like use the language that that references the way the Awlad Ali tribe, which is from that area, the way they speak about themselves and the way they express themselves through poetry. And so there's a lot of like reference in the poetry of Awlad Ali, but also like in Arabic poetry itself, to the eye as like a way of expressing the self. And so reference of something that is in your eye means that you can't see, or it's very close to your eye, then you could see it very well. And so this is another one, which this is a duck. And here I talk about how a grain of sand is following me around and it's telling me that I've missed something, that I should understand something. And then, sorry. It's difficult. And then we come to the like kind of central video throughout all of this. All of the side videos have text that is flowing towards the center. And the center has this video. I'm not going to play much of it, but the videos would show empty places, and the camera kind of zooms in and out and surveys the space. And once it does that, and while it zooms in, at some point, text starts emerging from the image, like in between the image. And it basically is also referencing that is something else is going on, and that something is very faint and slightly imperceptible, but maybe we should perceive it. And I want to, before I finish, I want to talk a little bit about this eye by mentioning the work of Reem Al-Qadi, who's also another art goal, who went to Sharjah and basically gave tea to the workers on the pier in exchange for eyelashes, and an eyelash for a cup of tea, and then created a device to look at the sea. It's a Mobius strip with their lashes glued to it. And so basically it's an infinite eye that can look at the sea differently, taken from the people who are on the periphery. And then there's an audio component where they ask the workers, like, what is the color of the sea? And they reply in all their languages. And so all of this to kind of think about how we got to the present moment and how we are seduced into creating and bringing into our new world the thing that we left in the old one. So if you're escaping a desert into a new one, then you bring to it the things that you were escaping in the first place. And so I want to kind of sadly end on what we have brought to this space.
خسارة مكان بالجمال ده تدب فيه الحياة شهرين بس في السنة. خسارة إنه ما يسعناش كلنا. مين ما يحبش يعيش هنا طول السنة؟ مدينة العالمين الجديدة معمولة بالظبط عشان كده، والحقيقة كل مرة بعدي من قدامها بنبهر. في مدينة العالمين الجديدة كل حد معمول حسابه، في السكن، في الشغل، مدارس وجامعة، مستشفيات، نوادي، ترفيه.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hanaa. So I'd like to open it up for questions or comments. I can kick it off. Okay, so one question that I had that I was reminded of in your presentation is the range of register that you use. So like, for instance, when you opened with these videos, like you've talked about the story, like a story of this Virginia guy and the Kingdom of North Sudan, but I've never seen him or his daughter or like these crazy news stories. And those were so over the top and ridiculous that, and you were, you know, giving them to us in that, with that intent, that they were ridiculous, you know. So that's one. And then also you and Matt Damon, and basically this moment where you said, like, you know, Matt Damon was trying to go home, but I just wanted to say hello. And that's I feel like it's a slightly different register. That's like the comic register, or sort of like a dark comedy in relation to the poetic register that you draw on in the thesis exhibition, for instance, right? Like that is like directly emulating these Bedouin poems. And, you know, you sort of begin and end really with like a critique of settler colonialism in different ways. You know, one, a kind of American settler colonialism, and like ending with gentrification as its own form of settler colonialism. But the thesis work is using one register to kind of as a strategy of that critique. And I wonder if you think that humor is another strategy that you will use, or why you excluded it from the work itself.
Well, I like to think that I do use it, but I mostly use it in like performance more than I use it in like video or yeah, like other or installation. So yeah, so I do think that I use it, but the other thing is it's kind of, it's hard not to like laugh at fascism funny. I don't like, that's kind of what I call it. There's a fascism funny. And after you've like lived in it for like, I don't know, all your life, you kind of start seeing the kind of ridiculous funny parts of it. I mean, yeah, so it's also like kind of part of the way you deal with and handle living under those circumstances and conditions, just through like laughing about it, because they're in your face. There's no escaping the ads. Like, they're everywhere. If you like are in Cairo and you're driving your car, there's an ad, for a ridiculous ad for a compound every 10 meters. There's no escape. So you just have to learn how to laugh about it. But in terms of my work, I don't know. I just, I will try at some point to write some funny poetry, but it comes out very serious instead.
I mean, I do think though, when the camera's zooming in on the texts in the main kind of frame central video in the installation, it's like the slowest pop-up in the world. And I did find there to be some kind of like tension there that was like humor. But yeah, I was curious about that also.
Thank you, Holly. And thank you, Erin.
Thanks for your talk, Hanaa. This was the first time, this talk, where I made a connection between the tetrapod and its role in attempting to control the tide, and the kind of design of your installation and the attempt to hyper control our gaze or point us sort of out to sea and not turning around and looking over our shoulder. And so I feel in like the critique of the tetrapod and the design of the space, like there's this kind of call to turn around, to wake up, to change the point of view. And I wonder if for you, there's any kind of specific proposal in the work, in the space, to kind of get us there, either as viewers in the installation or as sort of subjects to the conditions you're describing, or if it's, yeah, I'll just stop there. Like, are there proposals for us here? Or is it more of a kind of recreation of the conditions?
I think it is like a recreation of the conditions to a certain point. Like there's one, I recreate it and then stop somewhere, and then I am trying to like not propose anything like really big, because I think that it's everywhere and it's in all ways, and it's basically also symptoms of being modern anyway. And especially also, like, if I'm talking about the context of Egypt, we've tried already to do something. It's kind of gone bad, so we're kind of taking a break right now. But what I'm trying to do is the way the text emerges from the image and the way it's talking about, let's say, a clouding of the eye or something being in the eye, as like a nudge towards maybe reconsidering this way of looking at things. And so it's a very like soft suggestion towards like looking at different ways. But what I'm also hoping is that through the ways that it like keeps pointing at a center and how there's multiple subjectivities that come to it and how it keeps pointing at something being missing, that and how, of course, the language is using the first person, it's I, and so that anyone can come to it, and that this kind of one point perspective can be diffused and then like broken up in pieces, that then it becomes multiple points, vanishing points, let's say, hopefully.
Yeah, thanks. I love your description of the sort of irritant in the eye as being a kind of catalyst. Thanks, Hanaa.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Any last questions or comments? Yes, congratulations, Hanaa. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.